April 18th, 2025.
I'm Chris Shaleesh.
I'm Kevin Gibson.
I'm Kevin Allen from Detroit Hockey Now.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. It's the playoff, kids. Woohoo! The best 2 weeks of the year right now. Like, this is like, is there anything better? I mean, really? Kevin, do you think Kevin, I'm going to call you Gibby. Kevin, anything better?
No, I mean, historically, it's best of the postseason because, in a lot of the sports, you have a pretty good idea who's going to win. And it's really almost a toss-up on the playoff series. Like, home advantage in the NHL isn't what it once was. It's almost, down to 50%. And, everyone goes into a playoff series feeling that they have a shot, even if they're, at a statistical disadvantage or they didn't fare well against the opponent during the regular season. Because, many years ago, somebody called the playoffs the NHL second season, and it's been that. And I think
Really
that the competitiveness of it is what makes it attractive, and the 4 rounds. Although, I think it might be time for them to go to a 5th round and play in, but Gary Bettman doesn't see it that way.
Yeah. I think I was talking to some people. My way of gauging the general American sports public is talking to people when I play pickleball. So I'm talking to them and I'm saying, okay, they say, they know the hockey season's done. Oh, the Flyers are done. Yeah, they're done. The playoffs are starting. It's like, oh, the playoffs. And it's interesting. The NHL playoffs, everybody says they're the most fun. People often say they're the most fun playoffs to watch, even if you're not a hockey fan. And I'm like, well, why do you and I was just doing some questions. Why do you think that is? And they said, it's the overtime. It's like the fact that, they're going to play on and on and on until someone wins. And that's just crazy. Like, you find yourself staying up to watch games you never knew about these teams at all, but you're just excited because it's going to end at some point. And I think that's why I think the NHL should never, ever change the format of the overtimes in the playoffs. I think they are something that gets to the common people. Chris, do you have any superstitions? I know you're a relatively superstitious guy, having talked to you before.
Really?
Too many of them. You want to start with the playoffs?
Yeah, the playoff superstitions.
All right. So 2003, I had season tickets all the way up on the roof for the Devils, and before every period, I would stare at either net before the players came out, and I would say, "All right, all the pucks go in that net this period, and none go in this." And guess what? It worked. Haven't had too many chances to try it again since 2003, but
I love that. I'm bringing out my bell.
Yeah,
that's a great one.
That's just a weird thing to do. Like, why was that a thing?
I do a lot. I did it once. They won, and I did it again and again and again. And if you look at their home playoff record that year,
you just decided to stare at the nets.
I was nervous. I'm sitting there. I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm all the way up on the roof.
I love it. I absolutely freaking love it. I'm a goalie, so I've got all kinds of superstitions.
Yeah.
And
right.
Maybe you have any superstitions?
Who, me?
My guess is you don't, right?
No, none.
You're just a guy, whatever. It's going to happen.
I make what I can do, and no, I don't, believe in, waving a magic wand or wearing a favorite shirt or whatever, because then you get but they lost. Oh, so it's my fault, because, the Leafs lost. So with the Broncos lost. I got to change my wardrobe tomorrow. No.
It's your fault that the Leafs haven't won for a while.
Well, I know 9 straight years making the playoffs, the longest streak in NHL currently. 1 playoff series win.
Would it kill you to wear something blue, Kevin?
I'm wearing my Def Leppard T-shirt, so I mean that's
There we go. Kevin Allen, any superstitions for the playoffs?
Well, believe it or not, when I was like 9 years old, I was a lot like our good friend Mike Cagello in that, I always would tell people that my team was going to lose, thinking that there was reverse psychology. But then my 10th birthday came along and I gave that up and understood it really didn't work. But I really haven't.
How about for the Lions? I know you covered hockey, so how about Lions playoff games?
Oh yeah, no, I don't have superstition, but I mean, if I did, I probably should have because they've only won 3 playoff games in my lifetime, and
Right.
I'm 70 years old, so, and 2 of them came recently. So for like 60 some years, they won 1 playoff in the NFL. Like you can't even. That's just unimaginable. That and people talk all the time that they haven't been to the Super Bowl, but they really don't even win when they've gotten to the playoffs in the very limited times they've been in there. So, they're a better team now and everyone. But maybe I should have had superstitions.
We got to get you some superstitions before next year. Chris, you actually wrote about this in your blog, which was really funny. Tell people what you wrote about.
Oh, so what I've been doing this for as long as I can remember, and it's called fan insurance. So basically, if you bet against your team, you're always going to be at least at even, So if they lose in the first round, you got paid. If they win the first round, double that bet down in round 2 and see what happens. Also, what I didn't put in there because I feel like I beat up on them enough in my column, but I always bet the Rangers in the playoffs. So the last few years I've done pretty well. And then I kind of can sense when the wheels are gonna fall off, and I kind of taper the bet down a bit.
You bet the Rangers because you hate them and you want them to lose?
Yeah, so if they win and I have to hear all my friends talk, at least I have a stack of cash in my hand, So.
I love that. That's amazing. I got some weird ones. Gibson went away. We'll be back in a little bit. I've got some strange ones. So I have, when I play hockey, the best game I ever played in my life, like in a men's league, I was driving there, I was late. And for some reason on the radio, when I just got up to the thing, was "Carry On Your Wayward Son" by Kansas. Right? I don't like Kansas. I'm not a Kansas. It's not like something that they're really cheesy to me. It's cool, whatever. But I played my best game of my life. So after that, I had to listen to that song every time I drove to the arena, and it's just that became a pain in the neck. My family definitely has the wearing shirts thing going on. We would turn our shirts inside out. We do all kinds of things. That's my family's superstition. And the Flyers 2010 season, I got where they beat the Rangers at the end and then went to the final. They beat the Rangers on the shootout. That day of the shootout, I didn't have time for dinner to get to the rink, so I had a corn muffin toasted with butter from like Dunkin' Donuts, and they won the shootout. So that became what I would eat every time I headed to the rink. And when they didn't for the whole playoffs and they went to the finals, it was just crazy. I'm like, so I couldn't stop it. This is like, they're not supposed to be in the finals. It's crazy. Anyway, let's get on with this. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the 4 series, and I'm going to kind of start us off by laying out what I call my X factors. EKS, not X. X factors. So, and these are the things in the playoffs that I've found over my 40 years of watching hockey that isn't some of these things are obviously we all think about, but some of these things aren't talked about that much. And yet I feel like these are why teams that shouldn't win, and teams that shouldn't lose. And we're going to go to the Washington Capitals, and I'm going to give you the Capitals and Montreal Canadiens X factors. And then we'll go to you, Kevin Allen, to talk about the series for a second. I'm not going to I'll put my predictions in at the end of all this stuff. All right. So the first X factor, I'll only explain this one time, is pressure. Is about the pressure the team's up against. The lower the number, the more pressure. So the pressure for the Capitals, I have at 2 because they won the Eastern Conference. So there's going to be a lot of pressure. So that's a high. The rest are always high numbers. Okay. Momentum, I gave them a 4 because they're 4-6-0 in their last 10. Health is a 5 because Protas and Logan Thompson may not play. That's possible that if they don't play, that's a big difference. Power play 5, goaltending 6. Thompson is 9th. Is the 9th best goalie, but hurt, and Lindgren is the 29th best goalie. So you're jumping 20 spaces to go from Lindgren to anyway. Okay, and then matchups. The last two years versus these teams, the Caps are 3-1-2. Home ice advantage. I gave them a 7 because they're 7th in the NHL in home ice advantage and home record. And the intangibles, I gave them an 8 because of their coach. I think their coach is spectacular. And I think that really, to me, he's a big intangible in this thing. So that gives them a total X factor of 44 for you keeping score at home. All right. Now we go to Montreal. Pressure 6. This would be like 9 or 10 if they were anybody else but Montreal. Like this, there's not much pressure on them because there's not much pressure on a team that makes the playoffs in the last game of the season versus the best team. So, but it's Montreal, so 6. Momentum 7 because they went 7-1-1 in their last 10. Health a 9, they were healthy. Power play 3 because they were really hot. Their power play wasn't good at all, like 20th. Goaltending, I gave them a 3 as well because even though I looked at this, like Monabo is the 35th ranked goalie in the league. We all think of him as he's a very good goalie, I think, but it's actually goaltending and defense when you think about it. So it's like a combination of them. And the intangibles, I gave them home ice. I gave them a 5 because they were dead in the middle, 15th in the NHL home ice record. But home ice in Montreal in the playoffs probably should be a little bit higher than that. Intangibles, an 8. And I gave that because of Demidov and the general good feeling around Montreal and the fact it's Montreal. So that's 8. So their X factor is a 44 as well. So the Washington Montreal X factors cancel each other out. So I did all that for nothing. But that's why you know that this is a tighter series because this could be a little bit tighter. Is it 44 to 44 means that's not to me a sweep. But go ahead, Kevin. You're up to you.
Well, I mean, always in the postseason, there are what I call momentum teams that sort of ride the wave. Either they're playing well at the end of the season or they squeak in and they, end up with a lot of confidence and they feed off that confidence and one win begets more wins and so forth. It feels to me like Montreal could be one of those teams. I mean, before the start of the season, compared to the team that I cover, they're very similar. Montreal has Suzuki. The Red Wings that I cover, they had Larkin. Montreal had Caulfield. Scoring 38 goals. Cat was a similar player for Detroit, scoring 39. Neither team had elite level goaltending. Teams had young players that have starting to, gain the notoriety for the impact they have. Hudson, Mo Sider in Detroit, Hudson in Montreal, very similar teams. But Detroit during March went 4-9 and blew their chance to get in. But Montreal did not. Montreal thrived under the pressure and got in. And for that reason, I think they feel pretty good about itself. At the end there was kind of a blip when, they allowed Columbus, first Detroit, and then Columbus to sort of hang around longer than people thought. But at the end, they got it done. And I think that's an important aspect of who they are. I mean, they're a younger team, and yet somehow they managed to sort of have sort of a winning culture that they've created. The problem they have is...
That's the thing you mentioned about Detroit, Kev. On February 25th, Detroit was sitting in wild card 1. Montreal had been playing terrible. So from Feb 27 to March 27th, Detroit went 3-11-0. And the top 5 teams in the East during that span, Ottawa was 1, Toronto was 2, Montreal was in the top 5. So, I mean, you just can't go 3-11-0 in a span like that. So it allowed Montreal to get in the door. I mean, the Habs were on November 15th. They had the worst record in the NHL, and they made the playoffs.
We're starting to talk about Marty St. Louis actually, but Kevin Allen, continue so we can.
I mean, that's why I think I think Kev kind of intellectualized exactly what I was saying. They sort of created their own momentum. And, those teams, you have to be weary of them in the postseason. But, the problem they run into is I think Washington's a far greater momentum team for this reason. Like, their story really has been the Alex Ovechkin story all season long. And they've fed off that. Everybody has sort of rallied around Ovechkin. And I don't think they're done with that. Like, as much as it was about the chase of Gretzky, and he's accomplished that, I mean, it still feels like it's Ovi season. And I think the teammates sort of now kind of see it as, we can't, go through this incredible chase and bow out in the first round. However, it is a significant loss if Thompson can't play. Like, all of a sudden it's almost a toss-up anyway in goal. But this would be advantage Montreal, in my opinion, if Thompson, can't play. But, it isn't all Ovi in Washington. I mean, Dylan Tom has had a career year. And of course, Wilson, he's just had a marvelous career when you think about being one of the most intimidating players in the game. And now he's also a real proven goal scorer as well. So when you add in all those factors, even though, I've been impressed with what Montreal with a bunch of younger players sort of leading the way has accomplished. I just think that Washington last year they squeaked into the playoffs and we were a little bit lucky, but they weren't lucky this year. They scored a lot of goals, a lot of goals. And this year, I think they seem to be ready. So I'm taking the Capitals in 6 games.
Capitals in 6. Nice. Chris, going to your picks.
So the way we talk about the momentum and, what is built, and I just feel like after the Ovechkin record breaker there, is it possible we see Washington sag a bit? Still, I don't think it gives the Canadians too much of an advantage. If you look at the size, Washington's got them in size. They have them pretty much up and down the lineup in experience.
Yeah.
And like Evan Allen said, it does seem like it is Ovechkin's year.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how, the Capitals haven't had to play for much for, about 2 months other than to give Ovechkin the puck. So let's see what happens if they face any adversity in this series, which I don't think they'll see it in this first round. I think it's going to be probably Caps in 5. But if there is adversity, I'm interested to see how the Caps handle that.
I like that. Gibby.
The Capitals remind me a lot of the Rangers from last year. Their President's Cup. Well, Winnipeg won it.
Yeah, but they're best in the East.
Rangers won it, best in the East. But I think they're overachieving. I really I'm not saying Montreal, what they did, great. I don't see the Capitals beating the Habs. Not at all. The way Montreal's been playing last couple of months.
Really?
I don't like people that take series in 6 because that's always a safe bet. So I'll take Montreal in 5 over Washington.
What?
Yeah. I think Habs are firing and on all cylinders right now. Washington, I just think they overachieved like the Rangers last year. So I'll take the Habs in 5.
I'll say this, Gibby, you're a lot different than our former Toronto correspondent. Would never pick Montreal in 5 to save his life. If his life depended on it. But yeah, wow. That's something. I like that.
Hey, they're top 5 in the East. Like the last,
I know they've been really good, but it's like they don't have that much. Like as much as like they really when you watch them play. Like I watched them play the last 2 games of the year, because they could clinch the playoffs, and I've watched them other times. They were in Philly recently. They're just not that deep, and you just look at them and you're like, like how can they be doing this? Their defense is not that great. It's like they are doing this, but Demidov is a factor. Like he is something. I
feel like that about Washington. I look at them like, what really? How did this happen?
We've had this discussion all year about that.
I don't see it with the Capitals. I think Tom Wilson's gonna go full Nazem Kadri and take some stupid penalties, and
he doesn't do that though usually. Like
Montreal on the power play. I'm a Leaf. I have born and bred in Toronto.
I know that's why
I'm not doing it with the Capitals. Not at all.
Okay. Well, I think I honestly, so my pick is basically is going to be the Caps in 7, and I think it is going to be a 7-game series. I do think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tight back and forth. I think Montreal will win all their games at home, and Washington will win all their games at home. I think it's going to be that kind of a series. But at the end of the day, Washington just has so much more going for them, and they just have so much more depth. And it's hard for someone who grew up in the Patrick division, like us, Chris, to ever really give the Capitals their due in a weird way. Like it's because the Capitals were always like the ones who weren't very good. Like they were always terrible. Like I drove down to Cap Center to watch in the old Cap Center to watch the Flyers kill them every year. And there were more Flyers fans in there than there were Capitals fans. So it's hard to in their uniforms, everything about them just made them feel like Mickey Mouse. No offense, Chris, to the Devils.
Here's your X factor for that series. Tom Wilson and Brendan Gallagher.
Okay.
Which one of the two gets away with more dirty play and gets away with it? And then that team wins.
All right, there you go. I like it. All right, so let's move on to Carolina and New Jersey. Everyone, here's the X factors for Carolina: pressure 5, momentum 5. They were 3-6-1 in their last 10. Granted, they didn't have much to play for either. But health 9, they're very healthy. Power play 3, they're not a good power play. They don't have a good power play at all. Goaltending is 6th. I gave him a 6 because Anderson is the 11th best. Kochetkov is 17th best. That's really like middle of the road. So 6. Home ice advantage of 9. They're really good at home. They're really good in Carolina. They were 3rd best in the league with home record. Last 2 seasons head to head, the Canes went 5-2 against the Devils. This season head to head, they split 2-2. So so I gave them on the matchup. I gave them a 6, a little bit more than Devils would have. And intangibles 3. The intangible for them is the negative intangible of that they haven't done well in the playoffs. They have goalie issues that are always coming up. It's good. They're always great in the regular season, but they can't score in the playoffs sometimes. So that gives you a grand total of an X factor of 46. Okay. Now the Devils pressure 4. I think that more pressure. I think there's actually pressure on them, despite the fact that they're going in without Hughes and all that stuff. It's an interesting thing there to me. Momentum 5. They went 5-5 in their last 10. Health 3, because that's a low number because no Hughes. I mean, that's the reality. Right? That's what's going down. And power play 9. They were 3rd best in the NHL power play. So power play. Those who believe power plays and goaltending win in the playoffs, the Devils look good on both those situations. Goaltending is 7 because Markstrom was the 10th best. Home ice advantage is 2. They were the 27th best in the NHL at home, which you're going to have to win at home when you play against Carolina.
I should have been there at every game staring at the nets.
That's right. Yeah.
That would have helped.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can get you to 3. Maybe we can get you to game 3. We'll see what happens. The intangibles are 7 because they had like this next man up attitude and they got better goaltending. So that gives you an X factor of 42. So that's X factors for Carolina 46, the Devils 42. So they gain out a little bit in the X factors. Kevin?
Well, I mean, from my perspective and what I expected from them this season, it felt to me like the Devils underachieved. Injuries certainly played a role in that, but it seemed like the entire season there were all kinds of issues they were trying to sort out. Guys weren't playing as well. Keefe had something to say about the way they were playing. And then to me, this last blow was the Hughes, injury. Like, it's hard to compete against a team that's better than you without your number one offensive force. So I think that might have been the last blow for against the Devils being successful. But saying all that, I would argue that Carolina is not as good as they look in terms of their statistics. Yeah. Like they're in a top 10 team in both offense and defense, and they're the weakest offensive team for a top 10 team I've seen in a while. Yeah. Like Sebastian Aho has not had the season that he's certainly capable of having. They don't really have that flag carrier offensive player. Right. Not been it, this season. And I like him as a player. I mean, he's an exceptional player, and he's a difference maker. And to be honest, they've been known for their defense in recent years. It always feels like when you're in their defensive zone that there's 23 people in the zone with you. They're always, tight against you. There's never any room. Yeah. And so forth. But, they lost some guys in the off season, and I don't think they've been nearly as good this season. They're still a good defensive team, but they're not as smothering as they've been in the past. So I think, there's always a chance, but, I think there is in this case as well. And I think the Devils are going to push Carolina just because I think the Devils feel like, they probably should have a chip on their shoulder. They need to prove something. Getting Hamilton back is big, certainly well. But in the end, I think Carolina is better and is probably going to win it. And this is a series that I think, could go 7 games. But I think Carolina will win it. But I think there's a chance the Devils could pull off an upset here.
Yeah. All right. Good. Chris, a little bit about the series.
I'm not quite as optimistic as Kevin from the Devils standpoint. It's not even really that I love Carolina at all. It's just the problems, that the Devils have had all year, and playing a team like Carolina doesn't really suit them well. The big problem with the Devils has been these slow starts where they get some chances maybe early, but they don't score. Next thing you know, it's a second period with 7 minutes left, and you're like, I don't think they're going to score today. They've been shut out, I think, 10 times this year. So that doesn't help. Devils power play and penalty kill, 3rd on the PP this year, 4th on the penalty kill. That's great for the special teams aspect.
Yeah, for sure.
Problem is Carolina, as of game 81, I'm not sure what happened in 82, but they were the 1st ranked penalty kill.
Yeah.
So that should negate a Jack Hughes-less power play. The other thing is it's just this Devils team. This is not – if Jack Hughes is healthy on deadline day, this roster looks way different. You know, if you go down – you said it was next man up mentality.
Yeah.
The next man up just isn't that good. I mean, that's a problem. The guys who are big for them in against the Rangers in 23, I mean, you had Haula, Tatar, Mercer. These guys disappear for 10, 20 games at a time. This is a 7-game series. They're going to have to be on it right away.
Yeah.
The other one, Jonas Siegenthaler, that's a big, big loss that he won't be back most likely this round at all.
Yeah.
Hamilton back helps, but he's not that defensive shutdown guy. If he's not scoring, he's sometimes, and especially if he's not 100% healthy, a little bit of a liability on the back.
Yeah.
We have the advantage in goal with Markstrom for sure, I think. But again, he's been up and down since the injury. He's been better as of late, just one hiccup there against Boston. But I have a Canes in 5.
Canes in 5. Okay. All right. Wow. All right, Gibby, you look like you're like in a film noir right now. You've gone to black and white kind of, but that's okay. So let's go. That's because the way
I have not changed my wardrobe.
Oh, you did.
No,
you're good. You're good. You look like you look like you're forced to be there. But
wearing my Duff Leopard shirt and hoodie. I'm good.
All good. All right. So Gibby, what do you got on this series?
I think this series has the potential to put me to sleep every single night. I really do. You talk about jerseys colliding. I mean, they're the same color. If New Jersey put the green back on their jersey, I would lean towards them. But you know what? Freddie Anderson, I'm not sold on. He's an ex-Leaf guy. I'm not sold on him. I think that Carolina again. There's another team that overachieved this year. I think this is you know what, this is for you, Chris. Another series that I will take in 5 games. I'll take Jersey in 5.
All right,
Jersey in 5. Wow.
I just don't see Carolina. I don't like they played the Leafs last Sunday afternoon and the Leafs, beat them in Carolina, and just like, wow, it's a Carolina. Huh.
Carolina, eats up on teams that are slower than them. I found this out. Like Carolina,
I don't get it. Like it's like the Lou Lamoriello trap series. Like, geez.
I think it'll be open. I don't think it'll be trap at all. I think that both these teams are fast. They play fast, and it'll be, even the Devils, even though they don't have talent, they still have speed. I think that this will be. I think it'll be wide open. I think it'll be more exciting than you're giving it credit for.
I'm thinking 5 games that are 3-2.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's possible. So the other thing I forgot to do in the first series, what I'm going to do now is I always actually determine which mascot would win in a battle. So the Washington Capitals mascot, I'm going to just say is the government of the USA. That's basically what I can say. It's the government of the USA versus the Montreal Canadiens, which are just the Canadian people. Now, the government of the USA and the Canadian people have had some problems with each other recently. Who's going to win the trade war? Who knows? But whoever wins the trade war will win this series. I will say, I think at the end of the day,
beep. Let's back that.
No, we're not going to get political. No politics allowed. No politics.
Youppi, the Habs and the Expos mascot. I'll take Youppi over anybody.
Yeah, Youppi is what is Youppi though? Like, I mean, Youppi would kick the ass of any congressman. I don't know. I'm gonna have to say with this one, I'm gonna give the Montreal Canadiens mascot. I think they win it. All right, so now let me get to the next series, the Carolina Jersey series. Kevin, you said a lot of the stuff I was going to say, so it's not going to be very long here. I think that you're right on much of that. I think however, think the Devils aren't given enough credit for what they did without Hughes. And I know that they weren't crazy. They weren't crazy good and all that stuff. But what's happening there, Chris? What is this?
Oh, David Putty wanted to say hello.
Nice.
Just remember, though, when Patrick Warburton was on Rules of Engagement, he was a Rangers fan.
Oh, there you go. I don't know what that series is, but that's okay.
Not anymore.
Okay, so there you have it. So I think because a lot of people thought the Devils were going to fall out when Jack Hughes got hurt. Remember, there was the whole thought Columbus is going to catch him. All this stuff happened. And granted, all the teams in the East tried to not make it. Everybody played really poorly, but they still made it. And the Devils weren't really nervous about making it. They really made it, and it never got really scary for them. I think that if Hughes had been hurt like last week, sorry, this thing's crazy. If Hughes had been hurt last week, I would say, yeah, forget it. I'm just going to be crooked, guys. If Hughes was hurt last week, I would say that's the problem. But they've played without Hughes a lot. They played without Hughes for a long time now. They played without him, and they played without him a long time at several points in the last couple seasons without him too. Like, so this is Carolina has no snipers. This is the snipers, like you said, Kev, Aho, these guys, they have to be better. And Carolina knows they have no snipers. That's why they traded for Rantanen. There's no other reason to trade for Rantanen except to get a sniper in, and that didn't work. So to me, they're nervous about being able to score goals as well, even though they've got, like you said, top 10 or what have you. So
that was a funny trade, like Rantanen from Colorado to Carolina, and he was like, "Get me the hell out of here as soon as possible."
I know it's almost so crazy, and then if I
that was a telling story right there.
He basically wanted to be a UFA, and then he got to go where he wanted to go. But at the end of the day, here's the thing: I'm gonna say Devils in 6, because I just think that Markstrom is gonna be fired up to be in the playoffs. Like Markstrom hasn't been in the playoffs for a while, if ever. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember if he's ever played a playoff series.
Yeah, he did. He got a few games in either with Florida,
Vancouver, and Calgary.
Calgary, yeah,
maybe, but he's never really I don't think he's ever been the guy to go to. And Markstrom is going to definitely, I think, going to be the difference. So I've got Devils in 6. All right, let's move on to the Atlantic. We're going to go with Toronto and Ottawa. All right, here we go. So the X factors. Pressure on Toronto is a 1, which is the most pressure you can have. There's no question about that. It's just as simple as it could be. They're a 1. Why are they 1? I just put ghosts next to them.
Even if they won the cup this year, next year they'll still be at a 1.
Yeah, they'll be at a 1. Momentum, I gave them a 9. The Leafs have been playing very well. Like lately, they've been playing as good as they played all year. Health 9, they're healthy. Power play 6, they were 9th in the NHL. Goaltending defense, an 8. Stolarz was the 3rd best goaltender in the league this year. When you look at goal, that's something that these people who say that Stolarz it should be a, and I'm sure when we get to you, Kevin, you're going to have a lot of opinions on this. But Stolarz has been good. He doesn't have playoff experience. That's true.
I could never take him too seriously because one of my buddies scored on him in a men's league game a few years back in Jersey. So it's like, all right, how good is this guy?
Well, I stopped Cassie Campbell on a breakaway in a league game one time. So there you have it, right?
It all evens out.
And I'm not very good. Home ice advantage 6. They were the 11th best home ice in the league. The matchup, of course, a 2. Much has been made of this. The last 2 seasons, they're 1-6 against Ottawa. This season, they're 0-4. The intangible, I gave them a 5, and this is why. The one thing that helps Toronto is the fact that people are questioning whether they can win. When people expect them to win, that's a problem. But a lot of people are going with Ottawa here. So I say that I think that's something in their favor. So their X factor is 46. Ottawa pressure 8. Not a lot of pressure on them. They just made the playoffs for the first time. They're doing well. All that stuff. Pressure on them is 8. Momentum is 7. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10. Health is 9. They have no major injuries. Power play is 5th. They were 11th in the NHL. Goaltending is a 3. Forsberg was 25th. Allmark was 26th. So it's not like you're looking at much there, right? That's goaltending defense. I should say that. Home ice advantage 7. They were 9th, the best in the NHL. At a home ice matchup, they get an 8 because of the other reasons we talked about before. Intangibles 5. That's because of the excitement that's going to be there, and also because Brady Tkachuk's on their team. I just think that matters. That matters that much. After what he did in the Four Nations, he's going to be fired up to play there. So that gives the Ottawa Senators.
You mean when he got hurt?
Yeah, Brady Tkachuk. The Ottawa Senators. That gives them a 52-46 win in the X Factors. The Ottawa Senators win by 6. Kevin, you're up. Kevin
Well,
Allen.
it's so to analyze, Toronto, because the history of the Maple Leafs in the postseason just pollutes any analysis that you might have. Good. I mean, the bottom line, no matter what, how good they are or how many goals they scored or what they've done in the regular season, you just say, well, yeah, but they haven't won since '67 and they can't get the first round. And, look at their history. And then, what are you going to say? So, with all that in mind, Toronto, the one thing that I listen to a lot, I've covered the league a very long time. And, I talk around the league and people who are in the game and make decisions about teams and everything. One of the constant drumbeats this season has been, Toronto's pretty good. Like what Toronto's doing, and they've looked at this team and see it can be a little different than teams in the past. Now that doesn't mean it will. But and I'm a little concerned about where Brady Tkachuk's health is. I'm a big believer in the Tkachuk factor, and I think he expended a lot of energy at the Four Nations, and I don't know out of him, but he is a legitimate flag carrier. This is a guy that rises up, play. He gets everybody fired up. He's always first in line when there's trouble, and yet he can score goals. They're going to give Toronto some trouble. The rivalry aspect of it can't be denied as well. But I'm just buying in that the idea that Toronto is just a real good team, and they've got a lot of ways that they can beat you. And in this particular series, I think the matchup, although not favorable in terms of the rivalry and what it's going to mean in Canada, I still think they're going to get out of this first round. So I'm taking Toronto in 5.
5, nice, Chris.
I'm gonna piggyback off of Kevin. I like Toronto in the series. I think Ottawa will give him a push, especially if Tkachuk is healthy.
Yeah.
We got to see exactly how healthy he is. But you got Tavares playing as good as he's played in a while. Matthew Nyes, I can't say enough about him.
Yeah.
I just think Toronto is a little bit of like an angry team with something to prove. Austin Matthews had somewhat of a quiet year by his standard. I expect him to go off. I'm going to have to stick with Kevin and say Toronto in 5.
Quiet, but also like he's a Selke candidate probably. Like Matthews became such a good defensive player, so his numbers came down a little bit, but his defense has been really, really monumental.
And that's what's going to win here.
Yeah, I agree. Gibby.
Okay, first of all, Chris, I don't know if you're aware, but we do not pronounce the second T in Toronto.
Toronto. So
Argo with Ben Affleck when he explained this to people.
We're both from New Jersey. Chris and I are from New Jersey. We're allowed to here.
Toronto.
So, the Leafs. You look at them against Detroit last night, and then Myers deking out 2 guys and burying one. Chris Tanev scored. I'm like, it was a loose game, but Ottawa gave him trouble. Leafs had 3 goals in 3 games against Ottawa this year, and Ottawa took each game.
It doesn't make any sense.
But Stoller's 8-0 in his last 8 starts.
Yeah,
3 shutouts.
Yeah,
a $130 GAA and a save percentage, 9.5. They finally got good goaltending, and then we even look at Wall, who's there. My only question is the health of Max Pacioretty. If he dials in for the game on Sunday,
is he that important?
Because then you're putting Roberts in. Robertson might be out. If Pacioretty's in, I like Pacioretty's toughness. He obviously playing for the Leafs and the Habs, hates Ottawa.
Yeah.
So there is that. So Leafs need to get up. Leafs need to just bury Ottawa in game 1. But I'll take the Leafs in 5. I know that's 3 series. I didn't.
Yeah, you're not expecting any competition.
I just
somewhat will surprise.
I just see the Leafs just dominating. They're on a mission this year.
They are on a mission. Okay, so I forgot to do the mascots for the one series before this. I'm sorry. I'm like, my mind's all over the place. So the Devils and the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, a hurricane is a weather force, obviously, and the Devils are a cryptid. So they're the 13th child of what's her name, and I love the Jersey Devil thing. I grew up with the Jersey Devil thing, and I'm a Bigfoot Jersey Devil fan all along. So I don't think a Jersey Devil would be affected one bit by a hurricane. so therefore I'm going to go with the Jersey Devils going to win that thing easily. All right, let's get to this series. Toronto. My thoughts on Toronto, Ottawa. Toronto loses the first 2 and wins the next 4. That's how I see this going. I see this going like they have the pressures a lot, and Ottawa's played so well that they could take the first 2 in Toronto, but then Toronto will get it together. The big difference that they have right now is Berube. He's won in the playoffs. He's level-headed. He doesn't care what the hell the media says. He just doesn't. I mean, he's a great. I covered him when he was in Philly. He's the funniest guy because we would have media dinners and stuff like that in the media rooms in Philly, and he would come into the media room as a coach before the game, and he would sit down and talk to us and tell us things that I don't write this, but this I hate this guy. This guy's just terrible. He's not hustling. He would just tell you everything. But in Toronto, obviously, he's learned to not tell anybody anything. So anyway, Toronto in 6. Now the mascots on this one are tricky because the Leafs are just foliage. There's not much to them at all when you think about it. They can be they change with the weather. Very true about the Toronto Maple Leafs. The whole 9 yards. Kevin may have had to leave. I'm not sure if he's going to have to go or not.
Carlton, the polar bear.
Yeah, polar bear. I'm not talking about the actual mascot that runs around, but I'm talking about their actual team name. The Ottawa Senators are the government of Canada. So that to me is the government in Canada has been pretty good on the environment, and the Leafs changing and all that stuff has to do with the environment. So I say the Senators win this. I say the Senators control the environment, so therefore they control the Leafs.
Ottawa is the capital of Canada, but Toronto is the capital of Ontario.
Right, I get that.
This is an Ontario battle, so we'll take the capital of Ontario, Toronto, or as they say in Boston, Toronto.
There you go. So let's move on to Kevin's going to be back in a second, I think. So I'll move on to the X factors for the final series we're going to talk about today, which is Tampa and Florida, which I think is the best series in the first round. Everyone's talking about Dallas and Colorado. I think this is the best series. Honestly, I really do. I think these teams are good. They're just. It's a great series. I love these teams playing each other. All right. So pressure 4. Remember, the lower, the more pressure. So a 4 out of 10 means that the Lightning have. This is the Lightning we're talking about first. The Lightning have a pressure of 4. Momentum. The Lightning are 7. They've been 5-2-1 in their last 10. Health. Everybody but Bjorkstrand is in. So Bjorkstrand is he's not. I gave him an 8. He's not a real big factor. Power play an 8. They're 5th in the NHL. Goaltending defense a 9. This is Vasilevsky. He's the 4th best goalie in the league, but he's also Vasilevsky. Which is home ice advantage an 8. They were the 4th best home team in the league. Matchups last 2 seasons head to head. They went 3-4 if you don't include the playoffs. Okay, this season head to head they were 2-2. Last year in the playoffs, the Panthers beat them in 5. Remember that. So, Kevin, you might want to log out and log in. I think you're having issues there. Last year in the playoffs, they beat them in 5. So that gives an X factor of the highest X factor we've seen so far in this X factor game of a 59 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. There you are, Kev. All right, Florida Panthers. Pressure 8. The lower, the more pressure. I don't think there's a lot of pressure on the Florida Panthers. I mean, they won the Stanley Cup last year, and that's they won. People want them to do well, but I don't think of that as a city that's going to be like, damn, you got beaten in the first round by the Lightning. I don't think it's going to matter. Momentum of 4. They went 3-6-2 in their last 10. Health is an 8. They should be all healthy. They don't have Ekblad because of the suspension, but he'll be back. Tkachuk, I gave him an 8 and not a 9 because Tkachuk, is he going to be perfectly healthy? I think he is. I think they played a Kucherov on everybody. I think that he's fine. I really do. Power play of 5. They were 14th in the NHL. Goaltending defense an 8. I mean, Bob is 7th best, but also Bob is Bob in the playoffs, and this is actually a good regular season for Bob. He's not always the greatest in the regular season. This is a good regular season for him. Okay, and then home ice advantage a 7. They're the 10th best in the NHL, but in the playoffs they've been amazing at home. So we'll see what happens there. So the last 2 seasons head to head, including, I guess I include the playoffs on this one. Florida's gone 8-4 this season. They went 2-2, and last year in the playoffs, but like I said, they won in 5, so they went 4-1. Intangibles 9. Tkachuk, spiritual leaders back. You've got playoff Bobrovsky, and they've been to 2 finals in 2 years. So I think that they're a confident team and they know what they're doing. That gives an X factor of 56, which means that Toronto Maple Leafs Tampa, I always confuse them. Tampa has a X factor of 59, where the Panthers have a 56. So Tampa wins the X factors here. Kevin, you're up.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree about how good this series is going to be. If you look at it just from talent, the Florida Panthers, I think, are probably have the best playoff team in the tournament.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as it was last year. We don't know about Matthew Tkachuk, and even if he is healthy, there's going to be some rust here. It's, I think, going to be difficult to get back in, and they've had other issues. I mean, Ekblad is not going to be in right away, and I think you need all hands on deck when you play the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. Barkov's been injured as well; he's back playing again, but he's such an important part. So this team just isn't quite where it was, last season, and Vasilevsky, I think, is a factor that needs to be considered. He's played very, very well.
Yeah.
He's had a great regular season, and then also I think when it really mattered down the stretch. And the Lightning, for a team that's so have been so successful and so respected, they play as if they're still trying to prove something.
Yeah.
And you see all the time.
You're right.
In big games where if they show video, there's always one group where everyone else seems a little nervous and everybody's making jokes and everything, and then there's one team that's just quietly sitting there putting their gear on like they're preparing for battle. Now in this case, both teams are probably like that, but I think Tampa is more like that.
I think
you look at the guys on that team. They liked being champions. They know what it takes. All season long, we heard people say, "Well, Tampa's going to fade at some point. Sooner or later, it's going to catch up for them." And it did. Their depth was eroded after they won the cups. But now they've got guys like Hagel that are playing, a much expanded role, and all of a sudden is far more important. So I don't know. I just don't think it's hard to repeat. And I don't think Florida's going to be able to do it. I'm taking Tampa. I think they're going to win this, and I'm not sure it's going to take 7 games.
Really?
I think they can do it in 6. So
I'm
going to take my shot with the Tampa Bay Lightning as well.
I like it.
And unfortunately, I got to run. So
thank you very much, Kev.
Yep. We'll see you later. Thanks.
See you later on.
See you, Kev.
Okay, so Chris.
Yeah. So Tampa looks like. I was just checking the odds the other day, the gambling odds to win the cup.
Yeah.
And that's where if I was going to gamble on anything outside of Carolina,
you're right.
I would take Tampa. That on FanDuel is just a few days ago, they were plus 1,200 to win the cup. That was like the 9th best odds. I think this is probably the deepest and most playoff tested team in the, in the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
You look at them. Last 2 years, they lost in the first round. Probably the best thing that could really happen. You get that rest after going to, 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, right?
Yeah, right.
So, you got a healthy, rested Vasilevsky ready to go. Yeah. Kucherov, 2nd year in a row with an Art Ross trophy, should be the MVP in my eyes. You have Point, Hagel, Gensel, ridiculous. The size up and down the lineup is there. They got Yanni Gord back. They even have a guy like Anthony Cirelli. That's a playoff type player that I like.
Too, yeah.
I'm not sure what role he'll really have as far, but there's so many guys to turn to. Can't forget Victor Hedman, of course.
Right.
I think they're ready to do it again. I have Tampa. I wanted to say 7, but I think I'm going to go 6. Tampa in 6.
Yeah, it's hard to complain when you have the combination of your best offensive player is Kucherov, your best defensive player is Hedman, and your best goalie is Vasilevsky. When you think about that, They might be the best at all their the positions.
Oh wait, they also have John Cooper behind the bench, right?
And that's a huge
We
intangible.
can't forget that either.
Yeah, that's
So,
that's
John Cooper Mellencamp. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, Gibby. Do you have the Leafs in 3? No, I'm just you have the Lightning in 3 on this one, or
Oh yeah, if the Leafs, like if the Leafs really dominate Ottawa, that series could be over in 3. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you got for this one?
But yeah, I think Tampa Bay's got a lot of depth, and they really do, and they're pretty healthy. The whole Matthew Tkachuk thing, not only hasn't he's injured in that, but he hasn't played in long months, right? So
he skated a little. He skated. He has skated with him.
In shape? Is he healthy? I like Tampa Bay. So yeah, once again, I'm going to take. I'll take the Lightning in 5, like all the other series. I just don't see it. I just don't see how Florida possibly beats this team.
So this time next week, we're going to be talking about the second round already. Is that what you think?
It's going to be a quick one.
Well, I mean, that series doesn't even start till Tuesday. Hello. Are they waiting for Tkachuk to be healthy? Tropicana Field to be ready?
When I say Tkachuk is fine. He's absolutely fine. He could have played if they needed to make the playoffs. He would have been playing 10 games ago. I really believe that.
Are they waiting for the Yankees to leave Tampa Bay over the weekend? The whole Steinbrenner Field controversy.
But remember that. Remember that this is the matchup where Kucherov came back and played against the Panthers after Kucherov was out, and the Panthers made a bunch of moves with his salary cap money. I think this is I think they, I don't know this for a fact. Even though I know the general manager Bill really well. I never asked this question to him, but I just feel like there's a little bit of gamesmanship going on here. It's like we're gonna get Brad Marchand now, and because you got somebody before, and in order to do that, we got to keep Tkachuk out, and that's what they did. And Tkachuk is obviously could always say he's hurt. He's probably hurt. He probably hurts himself in the summer. Yeah. He just does. He probably surfs too aggressively. Like everything you can think of. Like he's going to always be hurt a little bit. That's just him. So unless he's like he'll skate. Like you saw what he tried to do in the Four Nations. Like he tried to keep playing. So
I mean, Marchand in Florida, it's been nothing. He hasn't done much there.
But actually,
at all.
And it's funny because I talked to Kevin Allen and I did a podcast a couple of days ago. We we talked about this, and I said, and he agreed with me that Marchand looks like when I was a kid, like all my friends, we went to school together. We all dressed a certain way, and then on Sunday we would see these same people at church, and they were dressed in the most uncomfortable clothing they could be. Marchand looks like that in a Panthers uniform to me. Like he looks like this. He doesn't know what the hell he's wearing. Like he's just completely. Because he's such a Bruin through and through. Like he's such a Bruin.
I know you're from Pennsylvania. Are you Amish? Did you have the dress like that on Sunday? Or
yeah. This whole computer's running off of a hand
crank. Put a burn up later,
Yeah, my wife's just cranking a hand cranking this to be able to run with the electricity. Yeah,
I thought you were pedaling under the desk there.
There you go.
I just don't see how Florida beats Tampa. I don't.
I think Marchand will show up in the playoffs. That's my feeling.
That's for sure. You'll get used to that jersey on him.
Yeah,
and see what he can get away with.
And Bennett was hurt a little bit too, and they brought up Marchand there because for Canada, Marchand and Bennett were really money together when they played with each other on the line in that Four Nations. I think they'll be back together, and they hate each other. They used to battle each other all the time, but that changes obviously right away. And Brad scored the other day. I think he'll be fine. He's Brad Marchand. I hate to bet against him in the playoffs. We've seen that too many times. I don't think Tampa gets enough credit right now around the league for what they've done. And I think the reason for that, and like Kevin said, they have a chip on their shoulders because they don't think that people think they're not that good. I think that all comes down to the fact that people thought they weren't going to be good when Stamkos left. I think that
exactly. Yes.
I think that's it. I mean, it's like, but they replaced him with Getzel, who's been better than Stamkos was at this point in his career. But Stamkos, was without Tampa can't keep Stamkos. That suddenly make you start thinking Tampa's going downhill, but that's not the case. And they've done a great job. They got great coaching, like you said. The Panthers, though, have some great. This is a really experienced team. Like they have a lot of players who've gone to both Stanley Cup Finals. They've got, their defense is not as strong. I mean, they had to give up like Montour, which was a major part of their playoffs last year. They couldn't sign him this year, and he ended up in Seattle. That could happen with Bennett next year. It's just a salary cap issue, right? So I think they're loaded for Barrett. I think the Panthers will take it in 7.
I think
It's
Florida has more question marks than Tampa Bay going into that series. Kachuk, I mean, even Marchand was hurt when he got traded.
Yeah,
right?
but he's not hurt now.
Yeah, and he hasn't exactly been himself. He hasn't been spearing guys and getting away with it and taking out hamstrings and getting away
But there's
with
no
it.
point to do that right now if you're Brad Marchand. You're used. I mean,
there's so many question marks with Florida right now.
I think they've pulled the wool over your eyes. I think that they rested Barkov, they rested all these players, and they let Marchand keep playing because they wanted him to get going after he was hurt. But otherwise, they would have rested him too. Like, they didn't care where they finished. They knew they were going to play Tampa at one point, and they said they know they can win in Tampa, so it doesn't really matter. So they really, really did that thing, like a Dallas Cowboys move type thing. Like when the Dallas Cowboys were good, this is just like they know they're good and they know they can beat Tampa and they don't have to worry about where they finish. They would have been okay playing Toronto too. They don't care who they played.
I mean, Florida came close to dropping, down to the wild card. Ottawa was
never going to happen though. It was never going to happen. And even if it did, they played Toronto in the first round. Who cares? Like, that could have happened too, and they would have been fine with that for them. They beat Toronto in the last couple years, 2 years ago, right? Or last year?
Yeah, they beat them last year.
Yeah, so
I mean, the Leafs would have rather played Florida in the playoffs than Ottawa. That's for sure.
Oh, for sure, yeah. But Florida was the only, and I think Tampa wanted to play Toronto, and I think as it comes down to it, just everyone wanted to play anybody, but the Panthers didn't care who they played. I mean, they have that attitude, which is always a good attitude. Like when you find a team that doesn't care who they play, that's a confidence there. There's something to that.
My daughter goes to the University of Ottawa, and she said to me yesterday she'd get tickets for Game 3. I said, wow. That's great, Rachel. What are you wearing? And she goes, what do you mean? And I go, I know your boyfriend's from Ottawa, but I said, what are you wearing? She goes,
just don't try to go out and party after the game.
I'm wearing a really early. Good answer, Rachel.
There you go. I like it. Yep, I would do the same.
$20 for a couple of beers,
I do the same with my daughter. She was in that situation. So the last thing we got to do is the mascots for these two teams. Again, we have a weather, not a hurricane, but just the actual act of lightning, which is an electrical, occurrence, and but happens during storms and big storms, stuff like that. So the Florida Panthers are an endangered mountain lion in the southern part of Florida. In my opinion, of all the mountain lions that exist in the world, no mountain lion has had to endure weather more than the Florida Panthers have. Like I mean, the hurricanes that run across this country, the side of their state all the time, and they're not unaffected by it at all. So I think the Florida Panthers have definitely the chance to take. They have the better mascot in this situation. They just do. Tomorrow, whenever we
Bay's the thunderstorm capital of the world. So
it is.
I think a bolt of lightning could take out a Panther.
I think a bolt of lightning's a little less accurate. Think about how many strike and how many actually get hit. But that mountain lion's going to get you. That Panther's going to get you.
That's true too. And mountain lions down there, they know where to go. They know how to get away from the storms. They know where they have their dens. They hide. They know what to do. That's been inbred in them for years. That's part of their instinct. They know when a hurricane's coming. They say, I've read documentaries because my son's favorite animal is a Florida Panther, and I've watched documentaries all the time, and they know when the storms are coming. They really do, and it's just completely. They're cats. They're wily. They can get through things. I don't mind that at all. I think the Florida Panthers is definitely the better mascot here, but we'll see. That doesn't always mean they're going to win. All right, so
I'm still taking UP over everybody. Yeah.
Over Gritty?
Actually, no, I'll go Cliff Clavin on you right now. It's a little known fact there that the CH on the Habs jersey, the H does not stand for Habs.
I know. You told me this.
Hockey.
That is crazy.
HC, it's a hockey club. What Canadian?
Yeah, I always thought it was Habitants to Canada or something like that. Like that's what.
So I don't know where Habs came from, but
I'm glad you would know this.
On the logo,
well, Habs comes from Habitants. Like the Canadian people are Habitants of Canada.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing. I want to bring up one more thing that Chris you brought up too before we end, and that is this betting line on this series is just about even on Florida and Tampa. And yet Florida is the favorite to win the Stanley Cup. and Tampa is, what do you say, 1,200, 1,300?
It was 1,200 when I saw it. Then I saw it somewhere else plus 1,000. But either way, they're like 8th or 9th favorites.
Yeah. So how does that work? Where they're even in the series?
Yeah. I guess they figure somebody's got to go home, and it's more likely to be Tampa. But
yeah, but it's barely a Tampa.
Really? I'm very surprised by that.
The series is like 130 to 120 or something like that. It's close.
Yeah.
So that's nuts. But then again, I'll throw this out there: never bet on hockey. It's the most ridiculous.
I don't see how Florida wins that series.
Unless you have the system.
Unless you have your system, yeah, right. Unless you're doing it for emotional purposes, like Chris says, don't bet on hockey. It's it's just they haven't figured out that Vegas hates it because I've talked to people who've set these lines and they hate it because the empty net goals screw them up all the time. That's if you're gonna go
over under, you're
gonna go with over or the line or a line or anything like that. You can't do it because sometimes teams score 3 empty net goals. If a team might keep their goalie out for as long as they pull their goalie in 5 minutes left to go if they're 2 goals down. So there you have it, right? So
well, it's funny you mentioned that. My daughter's boyfriend, he's always looking for gambling tips and that. And then I said to him, the only thing that I would ever bet on in pro sports would be baseball, because you know who the pitchers are. Pitcher versus pitcher.
Yeah, that plays such a big role.
Oh, dude's gonna get lit up for 10.
Hockey,
football, basketball. You just never know. You don't. So
there was that football game that ended with that crazy safety or whatever it was this year that ruined the spread. I forget what it was in the playoffs. I think it was in the playoffs where the team decided to just run back into their own end zone and take the safety at the end of the game. And that ruined the spread. Yeah, football. It's gambling on sports is fun. It's fun. I actually like in-game gambling more than anything else. I like that's kind of fun if you're going to do something in the game.
NHL playoffs. How often do you see a team go down 3-0 early and win it in OT? And
right.
Getting those crazy odds. It's a great thing to.
Right. I'd go with that. I'd go with that for sure. Like the other night, I was so close to going with Chicago against Montreal. I predicted Chicago would beat Montreal. Gibby will back me up there. But Montreal got up 2-0. I was taking care of the place. I'm like, this is probably the time I should actually bet on Chicago.
Yeah.
And they won. I should have bet on them. I didn't do it. I don't bet on hockey just because I don't want to be I don't want it to mess up my thing because I've had all 32 teams I'm kind of responsible for. So yeah. But I think
could you imagine last week when you put $10 down on the Canucks to win when they were down?
With 1 minute left, 5-2, right?
2 in the final minute.
You know what? Now what I see happening a lot is that they shut the money line off, which is a shame. So you won't even be able to get a bet in on that on a lot of platforms.
I got you.
There are still some that it will be active. That probably would have been plus, I don't know.
That was insane.
7,500. So
there was even an empty net goal. Okay, game's done, and then hello, Vancouver.
Yeah. Can I talk about one thing that was absolutely insane before we go, and that's this. Last night's Flyers game. All right, so that the Flyers with a win would fall to the seventh worst in the NHL. Well, would go up to the 7th worst in the NHL, I guess you would say. With a loss, the Flyers would be the fourth best odds in the NHL. And with an overtime win or an overtime loss, they would have been the 6th. They played Kolosov, who's probably their worst goalie. The Flyers did. They scratched a couple players, not big players, but they scratched a couple players. And that game was the most nerve-wracking game I've ever watched in my life because the Flyers, they fall down 3-1 in the first period. You're like, oh, this is great, no problem. Then they get there and they take it, and then they take it to 3-3. They tie it in the last period, and they hit posts all over the place. And and then check this out. The Flyers are now down 4-3, and they scored a goal that they called it a goal on the ice. So the Flyers have the option now to review it, which by doing so would kill their draft space because it was definitely goalie interference, and they review it. people on the internet are like, "What the hell?" But they're playing it just to win. They're not playing it. They're playing like they would play it all the time, which is what you have to do. Honestly, if they didn't review that would be really shady.
Yeah, the coaches and the players are always going to go 100%.
They're going to go 100%. Right. So they review it. The goal gets added. So now it's 4-4, and the game's. So then it's 5-4. The Flyers get up get a meaningless power play with 3 minutes left. Like, so now they have a chance to tie it with 3 minutes left. They hit the post twice. And then, so with like a minute 30 left, they pulled the goalie as well, and then with a minute 30 left, they give up a goal into the empty net. So now it's 5-3 or whatever it is. And it was a 2-goal game at that point. It was 5-3.
My favorite challenge is in baseball.
Wait, I gotta finish my story real quick.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. So it's 5-3. So now it's 5-3. Okay, we're cool. That's good. And then Michkov scores with 90 seconds left to make it 5-4. Again, they pull their goalie, and finally, and they hit the post. They hit the crossbar. There was this crazy shot where it hits the crossbar, comes down on the back of the goalie, rolls around, and actually looks like it probably went in, but the goalie's covering it in a way that you can't tell. So so the Flyers asked for it to be reviewed, and the fans are like going nuts on the internet. They're like, this is insane. And on that play, it was Reimer, and Reimer gets cut in the neck by a skate blade.
Oh my God, Reimer.
So you see this long scratch, but he's okay. It's like any more pressure would have been awful. So finally they score into the empty net with like 12 seconds left and the Flyers lose by 2, and they get the 4th best odds. And it's just like, but holy hell, like it was just nothing.
No one in the East wanted that final playoff spot, and it seems like no one wants that best draft pick either. So I don't know.
Truth, right? I know. So that was crazy. Go on, Gibby. You can go on now. Sorry about that.
Oh, my favorite replay in sports is when a guy tries to steal second base in baseball and he gets thrown out, and then immediately he pops up, like that. Like, yeah. Then the team reviews it, we're on the call. Yeah, you're out by 10 feet.
Yeah.
It's like,
I know.
I'm glad I really hope that baseball does not go to reviewing strikes.
As Steve said in the chat room, that baseball pitchers only pitch 5 innings now. Basically starting pitchers, like there's this big. No one's allowed to go a complete game anymore.
Not even close.
Which makes sense.
The umpires don't even need to show up. Like really. Like,
yeah, they
I don't want balls and strikes being reviewable. I really don't like that at all. I mean,
no,
spring training was pretty bad. I mean, it's like
you're the purist, you're the curmudgeon.
What would be the NHL equivalent to that?
It would be the puck having like a chip in it. If it goes over the line, it's a goal. I think that would be the equivalent, kind of like, would you want that reviewed? Yeah, I think that they do that with soccer. Soccer balls have a chip in them. So
that was the Manchester United and Lyon game yesterday with the ball over. I mean, that was a hell of a game. Yes. Oh my God. Like extra time when Man U won, and they had to do the one review with the ball over the line. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the stupidest thing about reviews, we got to go, but we're just talking too long. But the stupidest thing about reviews in the NHL, in my opinion, is that if you ask to challenge a play and you get it right, it's fine. But if you get it wrong, it's a power play against you. And that's kind of situation is like makes people not want to see. The NHL should just want to get it right. Like, what's the point of that? That feels like you're playing a game with that. If that's your girlfriend, like saying like, oh, it's okay if you do this, but it's like that's just insane. Like if it's close and you want to get it right, NHL should just look at every goal within the last 5 minutes of games or whatever. Just get it right.
Well, I think it's just because they don't want every single potential offside review.
They have time. They have time to check it over. It's really not that bad. It would take a couple extra seconds. I don't know. Why play that game? Like, why is this like a chess game? And whether the coach is going to lose his timeout and all that stuff. Crazy. All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Gibby. This is a great show. Remember, without the buzz, folks, it is just hockey. And I'll be back in some way, shape, or form tomorrow with the Western Conference. And I might get these guys to come back if I can, or I'll end up with these guys picks. And I'll just tell you what they are. We'll talk to you guys soon. Enjoy the games tomorrow.
All right, boys. Good night. Go Jays.